Hello and warm welcome to what is our final and last webinar out of 3. Today we're going to talk about how an impact of a well-structured business case can move you forward into purchasing an AS410. So now we will give a warm welcome. My name is Emily Unning. I'm an application manager on this platform. And here
my name is René Petersen. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer, responsible for all commercial activities around the world on this system and other systems from AXLA.
And what we will be giving you today is a short presentation of the system itself. And then we will have our key speakers, James Wingfield from Liverpool. He will be talking about his journey with business cases. And then we were going to have a short Q&A session.
So very excited to see, very excited also to get your questions later. Please write them to us so we can have a good opportunity for many good questions.
Yeah. And how you're stating your questions, I'll be speaking more about that later. So stay tuned. So I'll give a short presentation on how the block journey is throughout this system. So if we are starting by the load unit, we are opening the 96 load unit. The blocks are being loaded on trays like this. And with the barcode facing downwards, for utilizing information that comes from the list system, you can choose to operate with blocks that has a barcode or without. In that case, you will have manually typed in ID and values. So from the loading unit, and here we have a max capacity on 96 divided out on 4 trays. From this area, the block and the tray will be placed here. And then this sample chuck will grip on each block, placing them here for utilizing the barcode to have any information that is necessary to complete the sections required. A block will afterwards be placed here on the block holder, and then it will undergo nivellation to be able to align the block and blade. Here we have a vacuum system that will remove any debris that will be caused by having a polish for alignment. We have used blades here. We have blade cassettes in here. And here we have the carrier tape that actually will transport the sections coming from here up until the mounting area up here. We have a slide cassette holder. Each cassette can hold 100 slides. So we can have in total 4 different kinds of slides with 100 in total in each, so 400. A slide that is corresponding to what has been required is pushed out. We have mounting media that will be applied on the surface. Then the slide will undergo printing. There is corresponding to what we have been feeding in manually or from the barcode. Then the section will be transferred to the slide. It will go back here for extension, barcode validation, and to have an image capture of the section quality. After extension, the section will be stored on these collection boxes until we are able to unload. And then we have example of section uniform in thickness and in placing. So this is how blocks fed into the system is turning out to uniform sections placed on the slide. For questions after we heard James Wingfield's presentation, you are able to address your questions in the top bar where we have a Q&A or we have a chat. You can choose either way. The one, if you choose the chat, we can see the name of you entering questions. If you're choosing the Q&A, we are not able to see who you are and your names. So that is strictly up to you. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you for the nice introduction of the system. The system obviously is the cornerstone of what we are talking about. The first 2 webinars we had, we brought the system with some users. They told how they were getting the systems, how they use the systems. And now this 3rd webinar, we are really moving into the business case. So how can you as a laboratory, as a hospital, do a really good business case, get some ideas for a case study, and also be guided into a realistic timeline. All of these elements are quite important. So you just witnessed Amalie demonstrating the AS as you see it behind me here. Next, we will then focus on the business case, and you can see an example, just the letterhead of a business case that we have prepared by Axlab. If you are interested, you can request this one. Also, it's very important to have some let's say some data on a case study, some data from the laboratory that is guiding you and guiding your buying decisions. And finally, as mentioned before, the realistic timeline. For your laboratory, it might be that you are consolidating. As you can see, it's rather a larger instrument, giving you some really nice sections. So consolidating your pathology services, it might need that you are optimizing that. You might automate some of the processes in your lab. Could also be that the patient outcomes, you need a faster turnaround times for those, or you are moving towards digital pathology and understand and realize that you need some high quality sections, so you have a really good performance on that digital pathology. It might even be that you want to improve the working conditions for the individual lab staff you have. Could be in reduction of the manual or the repetitive and time-consuming processes that they are performing in the laboratory. So the AS410 obviously is one way of doing this. We think it's a very important way of doing this. And I must say that our main speaker, James Wingfield, please come on, James. I think he will agree with us, and you will see that in the business case that James has been working on for quite some time to really being able earlier this year, to purchase 2 of these systems. So James from Liverpool, Directorate Manager of Liverpool Pathology Laboratory. Please, James.
Okay, thanks, René. Hi, everyone. So as René said, my name is James Wingfield. I am the Directorate Manager for Cellular Pathology at Liverpool Clinical Laboratories. And today I'm going to walk through how I structured our business case, which ultimately was successful in obtaining 2 of the AS410M auto section units. The title of the business case that we wrote was the requirements for service recovery and to meet national cancer targets. So the presentation today is structured around the 5 case model approach to developing a business case. And the reason that I've structured it this way is that the 5 case model methodology is it's a useful thinking framework. It assists us to determine how interventions can best be delivered within the healthcare systems that we're working in. And it asks us 3 basic questions. So where are we now? Where do we want to be? And how do we want to get there? So if we start with the strategic case for change, in this part of the business case, this is where we want to define the problem. What is the rationale for why we are writing this case for change? And then how does that case of change fit with national, regional, and local initiatives? And it's also useful here to include SMART objectives for the business case. So if we look at Liverpool Clinical Laboratories, where I work in northwest of England, we are one of the largest providers of pathology services within the northwest of England. We serve a core population of around 1 million people, but if you take into consideration the referral work that we receive to our centre, it's about 2.3 million people. Our site is the highest throughput single centre site within the northwest. And we have roughly 70,000 histopathology cases a year, about 200,000 blocks, 330,000 slides. Also within our service, we have non-gynecological cytology, a dedicated immunohistochemistry service, molecular pathology, and ophthalmic pathology. And those services make up the core laboratory services that I'm responsible for. And also within our directorate, we have the mortuary, which performs around 400 autopsies per year, a forensic pathology service, and one of 4 forensic pathology training schools in the UK, a bereavement service, and also a regional medical examiner service. So it's a large, high throughput service, tertiary referrals centre. If we then look at some of the national strategy and strategic context, this slide is taken directly from the business case. And I think we are lucky in the United Kingdom in that the National Health Service publishes many strategic documents outlining their ambitions and also the targets for which healthcare services are required to deliver. So if I look at some of these publications, the NHS long-term plan sets out the 10-year vision for how the National Health Service will deliver and improve over that 10-year period. Part of that long-term plan was the faster diagnosis standards for diagnosing cancers faster, which includes the 28-day pathway targets, which is where a patient needs to receive a diagnosis within 28 days after they've been referred by their GP into secondary or tertiary care, and the 62-day pathway target, which is a 62-day pathway for patients to have commenced treatment from that initial referral. Also, some of the other key documents and services for which histopathology and cellular pathology is pertinent to the National Health Service Genomic Medicine Service, Genome UK, the Life Sciences Vision, and the Genomic Strategy for the UK. So all of these documents have shared ambitions, all these strategies, have shared ambitions, and they're all relevant and important to histopathology, and the business case outlines how histopathology and improving histopathology services will enable us to deliver against these ambitions. Also, part of the national strategic context in the UK was the Carter Review, which commenced in 2015 and was published 2015-2016. And one of the key outcomes of this review was the implementation of pathology networks. And this was to address unwarranted variation across the country and also to meet the future challenges that we were going to see and are seeing in the delivery of healthcare in the current day. For patients, this meant that they should receive quicker, more advanced screening and diagnostic tests for illnesses, including cancer. We had to ensure that their access to pathology services wouldn't change from where it was previously. And it would also set the scene for the introduction of the new wave of genetics and genomic testing that we're now seeing. But within the actual healthcare services themselves, what the outline was to try and consolidate from what were 122 individual pathology laboratories in England to form a series of 29 networks and to consolidate those sites down. That was to drive more efficiency, delivering better value and higher quality care for patients. It also sort of enabled us to enhance career opportunities for staff and, importantly, make projected savings of at least £200 million by 2020, 2021. So if I then look at some of the regional strategic context for which my service is placed, we are part of the Cheshire and Merseyside Pathology Network. This network includes 7 histopathology departments, 5 adult services, 1 paediatric service and 1 neurological service at the Walton Centre. And our target operating model for Cheshire and Merseyside is to consolidate those 5 adult services into 3 and to also retain the 2 specialist centres. And then also in 2023, sort of post-pandemic, there was a recognition nationally that services, histopathology services, were struggling with increased demand. And so the National Health Service, NHS England, published their 6-point histopathology improvement plan, which was a plan which outlined the key areas that services within the country should focus on to improve on. And this include key areas such as workforce, optimization of laboratory processes, estate and equipment upgrades, laboratory consolidation in line with the pathology networks, digital pathology or improving digital pathology, order communications and laboratory information systems, and also the introduction of automation. So if I look at my service, as I mentioned before, we're a regional tertiary referral centre. We support most of the regional specialist MDTs. We have a subspecialist clinical workforce and deliver all clinical specialties of histopathology except neurological and paediatric. We host regional training schools. Our activity was 128% of pre-pandemic levels. It's now higher than it was last year. We'd seen a significant increase in diagnostic and prognostic immunohistochemistry and genomics, and we'd received no additional investment post-pandemic, whereas most of the investment had been provided into patient-facing services to reduce the patient backlog. That had then caused a backlog downstream in histopathology, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So we modeled some of the activity increases there, and you can see a steady increasing trajectory of workload in the top right. We've got our 10-day performance standard and target there, which demonstrates that we're failing to meet our required performance targets. And also, it was important to include a number of the risks that we had identified within our service. And that's because, like I'm sure many of you are familiar with, we are a risk-based organization. It's important to be managing risk and demonstrating that you are effectively managing risk. So we made sure to highlight that we had a number of high-scoring risks and how this would impact on patient pathways. Some of the other challenges that we were receiving or that we had within the service, so demand was outstripping capacity. We knew that we had year-on-year projected workload increases. We were having difficulties with recruitment and retention, and therefore opportunities for workforce change, so such as increasing the working day, implementing 7-day working, and different patterns of work. We had a significant risk of staff burnout, which was predominantly associated with overtime as people were trying to fill gaps in establishment and gaps in the capacity of the service. We had challenges with succession planning due to retirements in key areas. Our service had also moved into a new estate in the tail end of 2022, and that had a number of challenges associated with it that we didn't foresee. And so all of those had led to poor morale within our workforce, and we had evidence of that from the staff surveys and the General Medical Council survey results. And we also had aging equipment which required replacement. Now, along with those challenges, we then had the targets to try and improve our service to achieve 98% of all samples being reported within 10 days by the end of March 2025. And also, what we also included in the business case was how histopathology fitted into the wider patient pathway or the systemic delivery of healthcare. And so we had these targets around 28-day faster diagnosis standard and then 62-day referral to treatment. So all of that sort of set the scene for why we needed to make the change and why we needed the investment in order to improve our service. So then we moved on to the economic case. So this is where we tried to demonstrate value for money. We undertook an options appraisal, which had a long list and a short list of the preferred options of what we were looking at within the business case. One of these options was to do nothing, the status quo. We included a cost-benefit analysis and a risk assessment here. And then we made a recommendation, which was our preferred option. Also, then we outlaid the financial case. So we demonstrated that the preferable option was fundable and that it was affordable. And we also set out both the capital and the revenue impacts. And some of the things that can be included in this section would include the effect on prices, the impact on the balance sheet, the overall funding and affordability, and also commissioner support, which I think is important, particularly in the public sector. So if we look at our short list of options and the options appraisal, we put forward 3 recommended options or 3 options as the short list. Option 1 was to do nothing, and this was to outsource any capacity over our substantive establishment, but also to continue with our locum expenditure. So that was going to be projected to be £4.7 million, which clearly is not a sustainable way to be delivering healthcare, because that's a non-core expenditure over and above our existing budget. So option one was never going to be an option, and we were able to demonstrate that the investment option, the investment case, was actually better than doing nothing. As this business case was, it was more broad than just automation and just the AS. There was also a staffing element, and there was other automation and equipment included as well. So our option two was to invest in staffing only, and we demonstrated that if we were only going to invest in staff, we would need to actually spend more because we wouldn't get the efficiencies from the automation. So our option three was to invest in some workforce, because we identified we still had an establishment gap, but also to invest in automation. And this would also generate income, or would provide income generation opportunities, which would offset some of the cost as well. So actually this cost, or this option, became the most financially viable for the service. We also outlined how each of these options aligned with that national 6-point recovery plan. And I will just say here as well that this business case was focused on revenue, or majority on revenue, and that was because of the managed service contract that we operate with a commercial partner. And so it meant that if we were successful with this case, at the end of the equipment lifespan, we would have the revenue, recurrent revenue, within the budget, which would be easier for us to replace equipment rather than having to bid for capital again, which was a cycle, or negative cycle, that we found ourselves in with other equipment. So finally, after the financial case, it's important to set out the management case. And this is where we are looking to demonstrate that the preferred option is capable of being delivered successfully and is in line with best practice. And important to include here are things such as program management, structure and plans, and project management plans, how we're going to utilize stakeholders, how we're going to manage contracts, benefits realization, risk management, and importantly, how are we going to evaluate success? So we outlined with our option three how each of, how option three aligned with each of these 6 points from the 6-point improvement plan. Within this option, for the workforce, it enabled us to invest in training and advanced practice within our workforce, enabled improvements in medical training, by increasing capacity of the consultant workforce, but it also enabled us to ensure that staff weren't being pulled back to undertake tasks that were perhaps not part of how we'd planned the workforce, so we could have our staff performing at the top of their grade and the top of their capabilities. It enabled us to deliver on optimization of processes through the implementation of automation and having an adequate workforce in place. So this would ensure timely flow through the laboratory, and that would have an impact on patients, as we would be able to deliver a higher quality service. It enabled us to invest in equipment, as we knew we had end-of-life equipment, and it also enabled us to invest in novel and innovative automation, which also addresses point 5 of the plan. And then I think importantly, it also addressed the laboratory consolidation question. It maximised the potential within the Cheshire and Merseyside system to work more collaboratively as a system. It enabled us to have potentially excess capacity to support other services if they had a workload backlog through the use of the automation. And finally, we felt that this option was going to enable us to address the faster diagnosis standard and enable delivery against that 98% in 10-day ambition. We also here set out a roadmap of how our investment was going to be spent and what that return on investment was going to be over a 5-year plan. So I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I think it's important to include a roadmap as to how your investment is going to deliver over a period of years. So what actually happened is that this business case went backwards and forwards between our executive board over a period of about 5 months. I think we started in August. Eventually, the business case was tabled in its final format in December of last year. And unfortunately, the business case wasn't successful in revenue, and that's because of the financial challenges that we see within the system. But what it enabled us to do was to engage with all the relevant stakeholders throughout the process so that they knew what the problems were and they knew what the proposed solutions were. And we'd also been able to quantify what the impact was and how the proposed solutions were going to impact on the workforce and on the laboratory. So what happened in February 2024 was a capital opportunity became available. And for those of you who are not in the UK, I'm sure that you experience a similar challenge to us, but often these capital opportunities come with a 24-hour turnaround time for a business case to be submitted. And that's exactly what happened. We were asked to submit a bid within 24 hours, and thankfully we'd already worked up the business case and the answers to these questions. So what we were asked to identify was how was the proposed solution aligned with innovation? What was the alignment with both the network but also the national strategy? How does the solution deliver healthcare transformation? What's the impact on the workforce? What are the quality benefits? And how does the solution deliver efficiency and productivity gains? So we were able to answer all these questions, have the bid in, which was fully costed within 24 hours, and we were successful. So what I thought I would end on now is this process that we've just started to do, which is the evaluation of success. So this graph outlines our laboratory histopathology laboratory backlog for this calendar year. As you can see, it's gone up and down throughout the year, and that's been associated with sort of workforce gaps. So when we're fully established and we don't have people on leave, we've managed to bring it down, but then it's gone back up again. We deployed the 2 AS410s in April and then undertook a validation process. And finally, we commenced using the AS on live patient samples in June. That was fortuitous because in June we saw quite a number of absences within the workforce. People started to take their summer holidays, and we also saw some key people within the workforce take some career breaks as well. So we actually ended up with about a 30% deficit in our laboratory establishment, and that led to that block backlog creeping up to eventually almost 3,500 blocks. Or for us, what is 6 or 7 days of a backlog. So that's delaying the patient sample getting through the laboratory by a week. But fortunately, we were able to implement the 2 AS units, and we started to process more than 400 blocks a day through these units. And that saw a steady decrease to a point where in sort of towards the tail end of July or early August, we actually had no block backlog. We were processing patient samples in real time again for the first time in 2 years. We have had a few increases in that backlog again, and this was associated with we ran out of consumables, which was our fault on a couple of occasions, and then also we did have downtime on one of the instruments, which was out for a day, which led to a small backlog being formed again. But for the most part, we've now been working in real time, and the lab has no backlog at the moment. We've processed almost 22,000 blocks through the 2 AS units in 6 weeks. And we're just starting to quantify as well now the impact on the sample flow. So the top graph there is our calendar year average laboratory in to laboratory out time for patient samples. You can see at the start of the year and also around May, we crept up to 8 days for all samples, which is far from where we want to be. But we are now down to around 2 days on average for all samples. And then the bottom graph there is the urgent biopsies. And this is now hovering around 1 day. and I'm sure that we will have this consistently below 1 day as we move into the future. As it's only been 6 weeks, and we've had summer holidays and lots of gaps in the establishment, I expect that over September and October, we're really going to start to see the quantifiable benefits from the implementation of the AS units. And so at that stage, we'll start to quantify that end-to-end 10-day performance improvement. So from my perspective, I'd just like to say a few acknowledgements. So on the left-hand side there, at the top, my management team and executive management team who supported the business case development. We also have some key people within the pathology network that supported us. And down the bottom left, there are key people from NHS England who have also supported the business case. In the middle there is my core laboratory team. These are the main 5 people who have been involved in the deployment and validation of the AS, and they've been absolute superstars. So I really want to say a big thank you to this whole team. And they're just starting now to train up other people in the lab. And also, I'd like to say thank you to the AXLab team. So to Matt, Ainsley, and Jacqueline, who are the sort of key contacts that we've worked closely with over the last year in the UK. A huge thank you to them, but also to the Danish team and the wider AXLab team as well.
Good.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Say thank you for being so resistant and willing for sharing this with us and be upfront.
Yeah.
That is really great. What a story.
Really nice. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we as a company love these stories. We see them more places. Not everybody, can share. You were willing to share. So we're really grateful that you were willing to share with us and share with the audience out there. You triggered one question with me during your presentation. And because in Denmark back in 2007, I believe it was, we had a thing coming up, first time, which we called the cancer package. I think that's similar to your histopathology improvement plan 2023.
Yeah.
And really the question to you is, how do you see, for one, of course, how did it help you here in this process? But also, how do you think that will help you moving forward?
So I think the plan that was released by NHS England has enabled us, or given us a structured framework, I think, to enable or align our improvement trajectories against. So it sort of focuses the mind, if you like, to the key areas where we need to be demonstrating improvement. I think moving forwards, we've clearly got operational targets and performance targets that we need to be meeting and evidencing.
Yeah.
So we will continue to, I think, see the benefits of that as our laboratory time decreases, becomes more consistent. The time for the blocks to get to the pathologist then becomes more consistent, and just the end-to-end pathway becomes more efficient, which will improve the performance of the service.
You think this is something that will continue? Will you see a 24, 25 improvement plan?
There's a national working group that's being set up now. There's still definitely improvements to be made, but we're really trying to achieve against those 28-day and 62-day pathway. So that's the sort of the end-to-end patient pathway.
Exactly.
And also achieving those targets around diagnosing more patients earlier, which is key for us in the UK.
Okay, thank you. Let's see which questions have been rolling in while we have been talking here.
Say your questions to either the Q&A chat on the top of your screen.
So a first question that came in, that's for you, Emily. So can you use other brands of slides or only specific slides from AXLab?
So currently we're working on a consumable package that is supporting the AS, which we hopefully will be launching next year. Currently we have what we will call recommended slides, which is slides that had a good frosted area that is very smooth, good for printing, has clip corners for the interior of the unit. And if you choose to, will be operating with adhesive slide, it has to be hydrophilic in order to get that good transfer of your stick.
Oh, perfect. So there are options, right? People can use their own slides. Yeah. Okay, good. Oh, another one for you, Emily. What is the approximate percentage between installations for clinical and research use?
So the numbers we currently have is we are 84% clinical and we are 16% research.
Oh, that much even. Huh?
Yeah, that much. We have a huge install base in Denmark, which is clinical, but we do also have some research pharmas, Novo Nordisk, among them, Darko, and this is just very a proven concept that this system can work either clinical or research. It's not a fixed one to either or, but it could do both.
Yeah, James, you're obviously coming from a clinical lab. And for me, that's the question I often get. Can this as well be used clinically and not only for research? So I think maybe that's a question that we've just answered.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Oh, that's a long question, I see. What proportion of block types can be cut on the unit? Endoscopic biopsies, core biopsies, etc. Requiring spares IHC versus HE, or maybe it is all? Question mark.
Okay.
And did you have to factor this into your business case? So that must be for you, James. That's a long one.
So throughout the process of writing the business case, we'd been engaging closely with Axlab. We actually came over to Denmark as well, so we could see the units being used in one of the a similar sized diagnostic laboratory to what we had. So we knew that at that stage, not all tissue types could go through the laboratory, through the AS, sorry. And so when we planned our workforce, we included that proportion. So I think we planned on roughly 50% of the laboratory workload going through the AS in the first instance, but I'm aware that some of the Danish labs are running up to 70%.
Pushing that, yeah.
Yeah.
The blocks that we've validated so far are all surgical resection blocks. We are putting almost everything through the unit. What we're not using is bone. And we also exclude things like radical prostatectomies where we find calculi. So we don't put those through the unit. We'll section those manually. But we've otherwise we've put almost all other tissues through the unit, all gastrointestinal, liver, kidney, brain, skin. So yeah, a wide range of tissues. We've seen good quality sections, even with tough tissues such as uterus, myometrium, and muscle within gastrointestinal as well. They're all cutting excellently. So.
Oh, I see there's another one for you, James. Have you had some unexpected benefits after introducing the AS? That's a little a different kind of question.
Yeah, I think I'm sure that we'll find more unexpected benefits as we go along. We're still early in our journey. I think one of the main things that I wanted to see from and hope to see from the implementation was an impact on staff morale. And we've already had that evidence. We'll be sure to include that in some of our feedback. Is that qualitative sort of element. So both the laboratory staff have indicated that they've really liked having the AS because it's less repetitive work that they're needing to do. They're now coming in to the laboratory. They're not having a backlog of work. So from a morale perspective, that's positive for them as well. And they're also able to see that at the end of the day, they've completed all the work and they feel satisfied that they've gotten through the day's work in the day. Also for the consultant workforce, they're now getting work through in a timely manner. So they're not being as pressured by our clinical service users to expedite reporting. As well, so I think that morale impact has definitely been a benefit that we've seen.
Okay, nice, very nice. Yeah, I see that's a question for me, so you can relax a bit, both of you. And welcome to the US. A question from over there. So it says, who is certified to service the instruments in the US? I can answer that quite easily. We are already now engaged with a service company in the US called Avantic, Tech One. It is Avantic, the main name, being in around the country. And also we are very soon, within a month or two, having our first own service manager. We are already now in the process of locating those people to talk to. And then soon we will have our first own service engineer, service manager on board. So that will be quite soon. I hope that is answering the question. Otherwise, yeah, we might take it later.
Yeah.
So one for you, James. In your opinion, what has been the biggest benefit of the AS in your lab?
I think it has to be the impact on the patient journey and the turnaround times for patients. That's why we're here, isn't it, in healthcare, to deliver for the patients. So we've already seen a really positive impact on that end-to-end laboratory time, and I'm sure in the next couple of months I'm going to see that performance improvement in the 10-day turnaround time standard as well.
And that was actually what happened in Denmark was with the first installation. We were able to hit that turnaround time for cancer packages, which were around 3 working days. So
exactly.
that is just proving that if it can be done one side, it can be done.
It can be done all over. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I just get the notification that this was the last question. So you're off the hook.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For all the audience, this is our second webinar today. So James has already been on fire in our morning. This is now our afternoon. Let's say goodbye to the people.
So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe next year we will have another series of webinars. I hope we have. But also very soon, the team Axlab, we will be at the ECP in Europe, in Italy, where we will be showcasing a couple of new systems. We'll be launching them at the ECP without telling you at the moment what it is. And also in a couple of weeks, we will be present at the NSH, where we will be showing this, and we can run your blogs. We'll be running blogs, and you can have some slides with your home, so you can see really the quality that is delivered by the AS410 on the booth. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you all.